Hello, Shemai, and welcome back to my wild Welsh garden. I live here in Wales and I have an old cottage garden that I've been renovating for about 5 years. I want to attract more wildlife into the garden and hopefully to come and live in the garden. And I think that if I make it a wild garden, that's what will happen. And the reason why I want to do that is because I'm so aware that during my lifetime nature has declined and degraded and biodiversity has plummeted, and I just think it's awful, and I want to do what I can to make things better. I can only do a little bit, but I think if everybody did a little bit, then it would have a big effect. So today I want to talk a little bit about plants for pollinators, and particularly native wildflowers. Now, when we decide we want to have a garden for wildlife, we're encouraged to put in plants that have flowers which will attract pollinators, and they tend to be the simple flowers, like daisies with the yellow bit in the middle. That's the bit that makes the pollen and the nectar. And it's dead easy to do because there are so many plants that have these lovely flowers for us, but also that the insects like. In fact, if you go to a lot of garden centres, they actually have them labelled, plants for pollinators or plants for bees. They're usually non-native, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think somebody somewhere did an experiment to see whether bees preferred native or non-native plants, and what they found was they didn't care. What they wanted was the pollen and nectar, and they didn't care where it came from. And I think somebody's probably done a taste test of honey, and people have said that honey made from non-native plants is just as tasty as native honey. So if you're attracting the pollinators, I don't think it matters. Now we're coming to the end of the season, but I still have a number of flowers flowering in my garden. I have, what have I got? I've got asters, I've got the end of the roses, I've got cosmos, I've got Japanese anemone, all of which attract the insects. So before I carry on talking about native wildflowers, I'll just show you what's in the garden at the moment. See you in a mo. So just a word to say about buddleia. They do come with a bit of a health warning from people like the RSPB because they're non-native and they can be invasive. But all I can say is if I didn't have buddleia in my garden, I would have far fewer butterflies. So the only thing is that insects only spend part of their lives as adults. They spend a lot of their lives as caterpillars and grubs. And as caterpillars and grubs, they eat the leaves of different sorts of plants. And I'm not sure that they eat the leaves of the non-native plants that we have in our gardens. So it's all very well attracting adults to come to the flowers in our gardens, but where are the adults going to lay their eggs? Where are they going to find the plants that their caterpillars will be able to feed on? And I think that's where native plants come in, because I think our native insects will want to eat native plants. So I think I need more native plants in my garden so that the insects who come here can lay their eggs and complete their life cycle. Now you can buy plug plants, and there are plenty of shops online where you can do that. But I think it's more fun to collect and sow seed. Now I'm sure you know that in the UK, wildflowers are protected. You can't dig them up, but you can collect seed. So that's what I'm going to do this afternoon. I'm going on a wildflower seed collecting expedition, and I'm after two in particular, Napweed and field scabius. Now, I think my philosophy here is only to take a small amount of seed where there are a lot of flowers. I think if there were only a small number of flowers, I wouldn't take the seed from them. But there's plenty of knapweed around here. In this area, it grows all the way down the road verges. And I know a place near here where there's a lot of field scabius. So that's where I'm off to, and I'll see you later. So I've come to a park in my local small town where I know that there's a lot of field scabious just through that bit of wood there. So there's quite a lot of field scabious growing here at the side of this little stream. But as you can see, it's still in flower. And I don't know whether these seed heads are ready to harvest yet. But then, if you look at that one, the seeds have started to come away. And I'm wondering whether these are like primroses and you sow them fresh. So I'm going to take that one . And if I just run my thumb over it, you can see they come away very easily. So I'm going to take that one. I've left a lot, so I'm going to take these away and give them a go. So here's quite a large patch of knapweed just by the side of the road, and all the flowers have gone over now, leaving these lovely seed heads. Some of them have started to drop their seeds, so I'm going to collect ones that haven't opened yet. So I'm going to collect that one, and I'm going to collect that one. And as you can see, there are plenty left. I'm not going to affect the knapweed population at all. So here are the seed heads that I've brought back with me. There's the scabious here, and what you do is you just gently take the seeds out and discard the flower. that escaped. And then you do the same with the scabious, the napweed. I think this napweed has dropped most of its seeds already. And you just give them a gentle blow just to clean them up. Not too hard, or you blow the seeds away. So here are the seeds cleaned up. I was right, there weren't many napweed seeds. They had mostly dropped already. But that's actually okay, because I've already sown some napweed seeds. It's these I'm most interested in today. So I shall be sowing these into a seed tray. I'll just gather them up, take them up to the shed and show you what I do with them there. So I have filled a seed tray. Now it doesn't want to be too rich, this compost, because if you think, these are weeds, they're wildflowers, they're weeds, they grow in waste ground. So I think ordinary potting compost is going to be too rich for them. So I have mixed some peat-free potting compost with some horticultural sand and a little bit of grit. And here is my scabious seeds, and I'm going to just scatter them onto the surface of the compost. So if you can see there, the seeds on the compost, and then I'm just going to press them down with a presser downerer. That just makes sure that the seeds are in good contact with the soil. Now it doesn't really matter what time of year you sow wildflower seeds, because if you think about it, these are being sown at the moment. Both the napweed and the scabious were dropping their seeds, so I'm only doing what would happen naturally in the wild. You can, I guess, put them in seed packets for next spring, but I don't see why you can't sow them straight away, really. So then, Carol Klein style, I've covered them with a layer of grit, and I've added a label that very helpfully says scabious. But of course what happens is the label fades, and you end up with lots of seed trays with labels in that you can't read, and you're wondering what's there. But that's half the fun of it, is the surprise when you find you've got something that you'd completely forgotten about. And then the last thing is to give it a good water. Now I'm probably not going to do anything else to this now. I'll just leave it somewhere over the winter. It doesn't need to be in a greenhouse or in a cold frame or anything, because in the wild it's not. So I'll just leave it, and hopefully next spring I shall start seeing some little scabious seedlings appearing. I'm not quite sure I'm going to leave it, but I'm going to leave it on this table for now with some other wildflowers. Now that tray, as you can see, doesn't have a label, so I really don't know what's in there. although something is germinating that looks like it was meant to be there. So that's exciting. We'll see what comes up in there. That tray has napweed in, and you can see it started to germinate. These pots have got bird's foot trefoil in. I've put them in pots because the plan is that next year they will go into pots instead of pelargoniums, things like that, things that flower and trail. Because I've got a number of places that I can put pots that trail. I've got a couple of chimney pots and a few stands to put things on, so that's the plan for next year. That tray also has napweed in, but that I think I've sowed a longer time ago, so those have been growing for longer. But both collected this end of summer, early autumn. And then in here is fox and cubs, and it looks like we've got some germination there as well, which I'm very pleased about. I do have some other wildflowers in another part of the garden, and so I'll take you down and show you those. So this is a bit of a nursery area down by the side of the house where it's sheltered and it doesn't get much sun, so things don't bake and fry and dry out. Now in these trays there are oxeye daisy seedlings. As you can see, the labels have faded, but the thing is I can recognise them now as oxeye daisy seedlings, so I'm okay with that. In there should be Welsh poppies. I can see some things have germinated, but I'm not entirely sure that they're Welsh poppies. And in there is some coltsfoot, which seems to have the same things in as the Welsh poppy tray. So they could well be Welsh poppies because they get everywhere. But other than that, all I seem to have grown is moss. The thing is, I don't know how long coltsfoot takes to germinate. It might take 12 months. So I'm going to leave it there and see what happens next year. And in there is the seeds of a purple flower that I got from Napweed garden that Sue gave me, and I'm not entirely sure of the name of it. I think it's a wildflower. It's certainly a prolific self-seeder in her garden, and so I've brought it here to see if it will do the same in mine, and if it does, I shall be very happy. Now in these pots, this is red campion. I have managed to get red campion established in my garden. It's taken a few years, so I think these will be for somebody else. Not entirely sure who wants them, but somebody will. And next door to that is some white clover. I've got plenty of white clover. I have more white clover than you could shake a stick at. These are for my daughter, who doesn't have any and would quite like to have some. So I collected the seed from mine, and those are the results. So I'll plant those for her probably next year. And in this tray is yet more bird's foot trefoil. I think I'm just going to leave those now over the winter and maybe pot them up separately in the spring. And So hopefully next year I shall have lovely big patches of Napweed and field scabius in my garden. Now the flowers of Napweed are very attractive to insects, and it's the larval food plant, I believe, of a number of different sorts of moths. Well, moths are in catastrophic decline, so having Napweed in my garden can only be a good thing. Field scabius is the larval food plant of the marsh fritillary butterfly. Well, I could say I'm very unlikely to get a marsh fritillary butterfly in my garden, but then again, you never know. What places like Nep have taught us is that we can massively increase our expectations of the numbers and the kind of wildlife that we can attract. I don't think that they set out to bring back the nightingale and the turtle dove and the purple emperor butterfly. I think they set out to stop intensive farming and to do something else, and what happened has taken them by surprise and has surpassed all their expectations, and I think it still does. I was listening to Isabella Tree on the radio, and she said that every year they think they've got all the wildlife that they could possibly have, and every year they get more species and more abundance of species. So yet again we will wait and see, and I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed visiting my wild Welsh garden again, and I do hope you'll come again. So please hit the subscribe button, like the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hwyl am y tro.